Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. As-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Among the existing forms of creation on earth, there are many within our ecosystem that were created solely to serve mankind or at mankind's disposal to utilize, like certain vegetations that provide food, oxygen, shade, and scenery, or certain animals that provide meat, skin, wool, milk, transportation, and other benefits to mankind. They all provide services, as the Quran uses the term sakhara, which means subjected to or subservient to. Alam tara anna Allah sakhara lakum ma fil ard. Do you not see that Allah has subjected to, subservient to you, whatever is on the earth? So what's on earth is subservient to mankind by fulfilling our needs. In other words, they were not created to serve themselves, rather to serve mankind. What about man himself? Who is mankind subservient to? No one. Not the other creatures on heavens and earth, nor the jinn, nor the angels. Not even to provide a service to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah does not need man's service or does not need to benefit from man. Inna Allaha huwa ar-razzaqu dhul quwwatil mateen. Indeed, it is Allah who is the continual provider, the possessor of invincible strength. So Allah has no need for provision. Then who? Who is man created for? Who does man provide a service to? The answer is mankind. Mankind are created for each other. Man is created to provide service to mankind. Not subservient, of course, but rather to provide a service to mankind. تعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. Cooperate in righteousness and warding off evil, and do not cooperate in sin and aggression. So we were created to help one another, cooperate with each other in doing that which is good and warding off that which is aggression, sinful, injustice, injury, and so forth. Furthermore, the believers are وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ. The believing men and believing women are protecting friends of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. Therefore, from one perspective, each of us were created to serve our community or human society, and yes, including the disbeliever, by giving da'wah, showing him or her the way to Islam and success. Hence, the Muslim's motto should be mankind in service of mankind, a motto that the whole world would accept, and of course, the Quran advocates. Now, then what is Allah's role here? What happened to وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ? I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. The answer is in one's intention and will. If by serving mankind in service of mankind, our intention is to get close to Allah and please Him, and that is our sole reason, then by definition that would be an act of worship. Hence, we are serving Allah Azza wa Jal. You help others by providing a service to them, using your resources, your time, your money, and your effort with sole purpose of getting close to Allah. Hence, you have in essence worshipped Him. Of course, this does not take away our duty of performing our obligatory acts of worship, such as prayer, zakat, fasting, and hajj, each to its own. But in Islam, the concept of worship is wide, as it entails any good deed considered as an act of worship if it is done solely to seek the pleasure of Allah. This could be as little as walking an elderly across the street, removing an obstacle from the road, greeting a friend, or hugging one's child, all the way to giving one's wealth, time, effort, and fighting injustice, all with the purpose of pleasing and serving God and for His reward only. The Muslim's attitude in this regard is mentioned in the Quran. إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. Thinking we feed you only for the approval, pleasure of Allah. We wish no reward or thanks from you. Of course, there are those who give to purify themselves. الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى. He who gives from the wealth, from his wealth, to purify himself. وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى. And no one has any favor with him to be recompensed. Meaning, if a poor comes and works in his house, the payment to him is no longer considered a favor. It is a wage he must pay for the service rendered. Here, the verse is talking about the opposite. No one expects any wages from him. He does not owe anyone any favors that he must give in return. إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى. Except that he seeks the pleasure of his Lord, the Most High. Hence, serving God through serving mankind. This indeed becomes إلا ليعبدوني, except to worship me, which is all inclusive. When you think about it, the obligatory acts of worship that are in the form of rituals, such as prayers and fasting, come in the same context, in that while these are rights of Allah Azza wa Jal, as our Creator and Lord, who benefits from them? It's us who benefit, not Allah, who is free of all needs and benefits. Again, these obligatory acts of worship are to obey and get closer to Allah, but at the same time, they benefit us. You could then say, I do my daily obligatory prayers, for example, as a service to myself, to help myself, to benefit myself, and often others as well, because it strengthens my community service by making me a righteous community member. When during Ramadan I forego or abstain from natural and permitted pleasures of life, such as eating and drinking from pre-dawn to sunset for 30 days, it is then easy for me to abstain from forbidden pleasures the rest of the year. Plus, the other benefits, physical, spiritual, and otherwise, as the Quran says, so that you may have self-restraint or God consciousness. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So all the benefit goes to me. Of course, the same way about the prayers benefit. As the Quran says, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنكَرِ. Indeed, prayer prevents from immorality and wrongdoing. In other words, we're not saying worship of God is nothing but serving mankind, and that prayer or other rituals are not worship of God. Rather, we're saying the pillars of Islam, prayer, zakat, fasting, and hajj, are all part of worshiping God, but are not the only acts of worship. And that they all have impact on the society. So humans provide services to mankind. Now, a question comes up. What kind of service is more important? What service can I provide to my fellow humans, one that has bigger impact, gets bigger bang for the buck, so to speak? Let's say I provide a service that supports and meets people's economic and physical needs, like feeding them, providing means of rest or comfort. That is good. It's a service. However, if we can help support a person spiritually, purify or correct their thoughts and beliefs, remove their confusions, or build their moral character, is this better or just providing a service that meets their physical and economic needs? Which one can transform our fellow humans? Of course, the second one, because the food, water, shelter, and physical needs can be provided by anyone, and most of it already is available by the service of animals, vegetation, and man's surrounding anyway. What cannot be found in the surrounding nature is the spiritual and moral teachings, which can only be provided by the services of mankind to mankind. I'm not saying efforts to make economic progress is bad or useless. Those are needed. However, we're saying because man's spirit and soul is higher and beyond his physical body, the service of spiritual and moral character building is higher and beyond as well. And this service can only be provided by man himself. That's why prophets and messengers of God were the most distinguished, noble, and extraordinary persons in human race, because all their efforts were for betterment of their society through building moral character. Therefore, the spiritual growth is more important than the physical growth of the body, because it can transform a person toward a higher goal, remove their confusion, and build their moral character. A service that can only be provided by mankind to mankind. Incidentally, unlike animals and vegetation, who do not do a disservice to mankind, unfortunately, man can do disservice to mankind in small and large scale, as we see all the killing, oppression, occupation, and injustice committed by mankind to mankind. Recent atrocities and genocide committed in Gaza is the latest witness. In parentheses, we believe that we do not own anything in this life. Allah is the sole and absolute owner of everything we have, our life, our possessions, even our body. Yet, He is so beneficent and merciful that He wants to purchase what we have in this life and give us the paradise in return. As the Quran says, indeed Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties in exchange for that they will have paradise. Isn't it then puzzling how some people give away their time, their possessions, and even their lives often to something other than God? Our attitude should be that nothing else is worth more than God and Jannah. Now, if you take any great novel such as Les Miserables, which is considered as one of the greatest novels of 19th century, and remove the moral aspects of the story, such as the forgiveness or sacrifice and so forth, then you have nothing left but some meaningless meetings, fightings, and killings, a form of animal-like existence. However, you add these moral aspects, then it becomes one of the greatest, most popular novels ever written. Toward the end of the novel, the writer, Victor Hugo, explains his work's overarching structure as he says that the work in its entirety details a progress from evil to good, from injustice to justice, from falsehood to truth, from night to day, from bestiality to duty, from hell to heaven, from nothingness to God, with the starting point as matter, moving to destination, the soul. Hence, what elevates mankind is these moral teachings and spiritual growth. And those who provide such services are the noblest of mankind. As such, the prophets and messengers of God were the noblest because they provided the greatest service to mankind, especially through drawing man's attention to his Creator, who is the ultimate source of power, mercy, benevolence, forgiveness, and justice, and asked for no recompense for their services to mankind. وَمَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ أَجْرِيَ إِلَّا عَلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And I do not ask you for it any payment. For any payment. My payment is only from the Lord of people of the world. While they never ask for any wages in return, they only ask people to give in charity to others, which is another form of service from mankind to mankind. Another reason to be the noblest of all among mankind. When one dedicates himself to service of others, especially in matters of spirituality, tawheed, and moral issues, help nourishing their soul, how would he benefit himself? As we say, what's in it for him? Well, his Lord said, he who gives from his wealth to purify himself, and no one has any favor with him to be recompensed, except that he seeks the pleasure of his Lord, the Most High. Then, that's in chapter 92. Then immediately after that says, وَلَسَوْفَ يَرْضَى. And soon he will attain complete satisfaction. He will soon be well pleased by receiving things that no eye has seen and no ear has heard and a place none has been. His transaction is with Allah Azza wa Jal. Now, while this is a great transaction, Ali ibn Abi Talib said, those who do good deeds, expecting great rewards from Allah, are businessmen. They start an investment in order to get a higher ROI, return on investment. Not that it is bad or their action is invalid, but it is a business-like mindset. Whereas one who says my goal is not merely to receive reward from Allah Azza wa Jal, which he will give anyway because he has said so, but rather says, I do good deed for the sake of God to please him. Along the same line is nadr or offering. When you say I will give $1,000 to charity if my son is accepted to XYZ universities, making it a worship conditional on his acceptance, at the same time making it obligatory on yourself if he gets accepted, rather than doing it and giving it in charity, first making it unconditional, then perhaps making dua that your son gets accepted in the university by asking Allah to accept your charity, whether he grants your son's success or not. By the same token, the same person will stay away from the evil, not just for the fear of punishment, but also because he hates it, as the Quran says. ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون. But Allah has endeared the belief to you and beautified it in your hearts and has made disbelief, wrongdoing, and disobedience detestable to you. Those are the rightly guided. Unlike those who like to commit a sin and what stops them is the fear of punishment, he will not think, for example, zina, fornication is haram, otherwise I would indulge in it quite often. He rather sees the harms of it to himself and the society to the point he will despise the act itself before even thinking about the punishment. وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. And Allah has made disbelief, wrongdoing, and disobedience detestable to you, loathsome to you. Those are the rightly guided. Rashid means the one who is rightly guided. So here we see how the Quran elevates mankind. Among the philosophers, Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, one of the central Enlightenment thinkers who had a comprehensive works in epistemology, metaphysics, and ethics, which made him one of the most influential and also controversial figures in modern Western philosophy, said the same thing when he said one should not do the immoral or evil acts because of fear of punishment from God or the government, or one should do the good or the moral thing because of rewards, but rather should do the good deed, the right thing, because it's good, and avoid the bad deed, the wrong thing, because it is bad. However, Kant makes one mistake here, which is the absoluteness of these statements and taking out the spiritual aspect of these, especially when it comes to acts of worship. You cannot take the reward and punishment components of it, the reward and punishment components, especially the reward and punishment of God, out of this equation. If you do, many people won't do them, no matter how good or beneficial they may sound. Islam combines both. You do have the rewards and punishment of God as the default. However, once one is elevated to the position of rightly guided, then despises evil things, wrongdoings, and loves good things and righteous deeds. This is where it is said a philosopher just cranks out theories, practical or not, whereas a prophet, a messenger of God, takes it to field of action, walks the talk, as we say. He starts out with rewards and punishment as the consequence of actions. Then once one's belief system is developed and guidance has taken a strong hold in him, then he automatically loves good deeds, righteous deeds, and keeps repeating them because he sees the good in them. Of course, all the while, his reward is preserved by Allah. When he takes sweets to some poor kids and sees the smiles and joy in their faces, he loves it and enjoys it and does so because it is a good thing to do. He thinks to himself, of course Allah would reward me, but even if he did not, he has enjoined me to do a good thing. This is a good thing. By the same token, he hates evil deeds and avoids them because he sees the bad in them, often without even thinking about the punishment aspect of it. This is how a righteous society is built. A messenger of God would not start out by saying, do this because it is good, or don't do that because it's bad, because vast majority of the society would not comply solely based on that. Therefore, a prophet or a messenger of God wants to give tarbiyah, training, to the society by teaching it and practicing it in a gentle and gradual way, as we spoke. All of which are the immense services the prophets and messengers of God have rendered to mankind. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam not only conveyed God's message, but he also taught it, demonstrated it, practiced it, and created a social revolution that has continued over 1400 years, the greatest service to mankind. Of course, for those who get it. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.